Hello, everybody. Brian Gleis here from the Scott Insurance Agency. Today, I want to take a second to talk to you about liability coverage. Liability limits are one of the most misquoted coverages that I see when I'm reviewing other policy. And here's how to determine if you're covered. So first things first, we want to make sure that the coverage makes sense. I never want you to feel like you're blindfolded throwing a dart at a dartboard, praying that you're going to hit the bullseye. For this discussion, we're going to talk about the two most common types of policies: homeowners insurance and auto insurance. The way I design the policy revolves around the assets that my client owns. This can also be considered net worth. Homeowners insurance. A lot of coverage on your homeowner's policy follows a template. Personal liability coverage is a line item on your homeowner's policy. The coverage should be relatively easy to spot. You'll look for the words personal liability, and it's a specific line on your coverage. There's typically four options for your personal liability: 100,000, 300,000, $500,000, and some companies out there will go all the way up to $1 million. So how much liability coverage should I have? Let's hit an example on it. If you owned a home with 3 acres, and let's say the home was valued at $250,000, the homeowner's policy had personal liability coverage set at $100,000. Now in that example, that doesn't make sense, and we'll hit that in just a second. Personal liability coverage on your home policy is designed to protect you in the event of a lawsuit where, due to your negligence, you caused property damage or bodily injury to another party that occurred on your property. This could be a loose handrail, it could be a loose stair tread, a swimming pool accident, a trampoline accident. Those are all great examples. Personal liability coverage should take your assets and net worth into consideration. This would include the value of any land, buildings, bank accounts, investments, etc., etc. So in the example above, the personal liability limit's not high enough. The $100,000 worth of personal liability doesn't do nearly enough to cover the value of the 3 acres, the value of the $250,000 home, and the value of any investments or other types of assets that you have to protect. So when it comes to your homeowner's policy, your liability limits have to protect your nest egg in the event of that lawsuit. So the next topic of conversation will be our auto insurance. So as far as auto insurance liability goes, most people that I talk to have no idea why they have the level of coverage on their policy, or if that's even the right level of coverage for them. The insurance agent needs to or should explain how your liability limits work in detail with specific examples. In today's world, many people purchase online and an agent's never involved. It's just a point and click process. Auto liability has a few more moving parts, so let's break it down. Most policies carry split limits, and they kind of look like this. I'm going to use my pointer, so follow the bouncing ball. 100/300/100. The first number is the policy limit for bodily injury to others per person. The second number is the policy limit for bodily injury to others per vehicle. The third number is the policy limit for property damage to others. Each time you see a slash in the number, it represents the insurance company's checkbook closing. So here you'll see $100,000 per person, no more than $300,000, no matter how many people were in the car, and then $100,000 to replace whatever you hit, whether it was 1 car, 2 car, 3 cars, a mailbox, or whatever it may be. So if we look at this a little closer, still using the 100/300/100 as an example, knowing these limits are supposed to cover your assets and your net worth, just like the general liability or personal liability coverage on your homeowners. And we're going to use the same client that we did before, that client on that 3 acres with a home value of $250,000. So that person was in a car accident. He injures the only person in the other car, and the injured person hires a lawyer for damages. The damages came to $300,000 when everything was said and done. How much coverage is the auto policy going to provide? Question mark. Remember, since there was only one person in the car, here is your number for bodily injury per person, so that answers $100,000. If the lawsuit went forward and you as the client lost, where would you come up with that other $200,000? They sued for $300,000. The insurance paid $100,000. You had to figure out where to come up with this $200,000. Let's make this a little worse. What if there was more than one person in the other car? What if there was more than one vehicle involved? So the example can snowball, and this info is not a scare tactic. It's just a statement on how important it is to know the rules and make sure you're working with an agent that explains why your current coverage is or is not correct for your circumstance. With this knowledge, you'll be able to be confident in the coverage that you carry on your auto policy. With this knowledge, you'll be able to determine if the insurance agent is just providing you a standard template quote or if they ask the questions needed to determine the amount of liability that meets your needs. So when we talk about liability limits in autos, these are your common coverages. All these numbers are in thousands, so this means 25,000 slash 50,000 slash 25,000. This middle of the road is where you're going to find a lot of people. But middle of the road isn't where you need to be if your assets are higher than that. In the example, we know the house was worth $250,000. We know the client had 3 acres. We know the client's driving at least one car. Most people probably own 1 or 2 cars. So in that example, I would suggest they carry $250,000, $500,000 at a minimum, and just to be safe, go to the $500,000. What most people don't understand is the pricing difference between these is not a big deal. They've just never had it explained to them. This last bullet point is combined single limit. It's a different coverage and not a lot of companies offer it. It's a bag of money. So if we take the 100, 300, 100, it would be a bag of money with $300,000 in it. What makes the combined single limit different is it doesn't have these slashes. I like to offer this coverage whenever it is available because in the example of the guy that was injured, sued for $300,000, if it was a split limit policy, you'd only have access to this $100,000. If it was a combined single limit, you would have had access to the full $300,000 and the suit would have been managed much better. So what happens if your assets are higher than the max limits that the policy provides? Majority of insurance companies stop at $500,000. While many folks have never went through this process, looked at their net worth or total assets, guys, it doesn't take long to get to $500,000 when you start putting paper to pencil, when you're talking about home, acreage, and cars and bank accounts and things like that. I ask my clients that if I took everything that they owned and put it in a bag, what number would I write on that bag as far as a value? And a lot of folks laugh at the conversation, but a lot of them are also surprised when they put pen to paper and actually run the numbers. So the answer to if the base policy's limits isn't high enough, we purchase an umbrella policy. Umbrella policies only do one thing, and it provides extra liability coverage when the base policy does not cover your assets. Umbrellas are really generally affordable. Now, I know that's my opinion, but it is the truth when we take a look at the big picture. I suggest umbrellas to folks that have a high net worth because of their asset level. I suggest umbrellas to folks with youthful drivers because their kiddo's going to hit somebody. I own one of those youthful drivers, so I'm in that same boat. Or to a couple that's close to retirement because they've worked all of their life to get to where they're at, and let's protect what they have with the proper amounts of insurance. So in summary, guys, knowledge is power. You do not need to have your insurance license to understand the concepts that we've just covered. Make sure your insurance makes sense to you. Make sure your insurance covers your assets. Work with an agent you trust and asks the right questions. Don't work with an agent that's only focused on price. They're going to cut corners, and that's going to show up at the time of a claim. Ask your agent questions. If you don't know what questions to ask your agent that. What question should I ask? I help people with that all the time. Well, guys, that's it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your business. This is me and how to get a hold of me. We want to help you in any way that we can. Just can't thank you enough. I appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Bye-bye.